I'd like to call our city council to order for November 14th, 2018. And we will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Bridger Zimmerman from Troop 1136. So, Bridger, if you could come up to the microphone.
Please stand. Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May the audience be seated.
Thank you, Bridger. We have one presentation this evening, and just a reminder to those that do presentations that we'd like to keep those to 10 minutes. It's a presentation from Keddington and Christensen LLC regarding the audit report and the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018. Bill Piper.
Thanks, Mayor. We have Marcus Arbuckle, who is a partner with Keddington and Christensen, here to present the results of the audit. And I just want to, before he starts, tell him thanks for his team and hard work they put into the audit this year. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, my name is Marcus Arbuckle with Keddington and Christensen. First of all, I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to audit West Jordan City. It's a great city. As part of an audit, we're required to report several items to governance about the audit. We consider the council to be governance over the city, and part of your responsibility is the oversight of the financial reporting process, where management's responsible for the financial statements, and an audit does not relieve governance or management of those responsibilities. As auditors, we're required to plan and perform an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and design the audit in order to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And part of an audit, there's 4 reports that we issue. The first one is the opinion, and we have given an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. That opinion is on the basic financial section, which includes the footnotes. We do limited procedures on the supplemental schedules, including the MD&A, and then the introduction and the statistical section is unaudited. The second report that we issue is the report on internal controls, that we review the internal controls that are directly related to the financial reporting process. Those controls include the cash receipting process, the cash disbursement process, the payroll process, and the financial close and reporting process. We do not give an opinion on the effectiveness of the controls, but we do issue recommendations as needed. The third report that we issue is the report on compliance of major federal programs. The program that was tested this year was the Community Development Block Grant, and in our opinion, the city complied in all material respects with that grant. The fourth report that we have is the report on state compliance. As part of an audit for governmental entities in Utah, the state auditor's office has us test certain areas of state compliance. Some of those areas include budgetary compliance, fund balance, justice court, Utah retirement system, restricted taxes and related revenue, Open and Public Meetings Act, and the Public Treasurer's Bond. So there's several areas we look into, and again, we write findings as necessary. Now, to get into the findings, actually I'm happy to report that we don't have any findings. This is the first year that I've audited West Jordan City where there hasn't been any findings. And I think out of all the government entities I'm auditing, it's the only one I've seen with no findings this year. So it doesn't happen very often. But Bill and his staff have done a great job. And during the audit, we didn't have any difficulties performing the audit. There are no uncorrected misstatements. We didn't have any disagreement with management. And we did not find any instances of fraud. So things look good. I don't know if anyone has any questions about the audit or any of these opinions.
There's a couple. We'll start with Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. The CAFR, is that something that you can provide for us to put online so we can see it and the residents can see it?
Yeah, I believe the city puts that online.
It's there now?
It's currently not. We're just getting the covers put on it, and then we'll upload it. We've got the electronic version for it.
Okay. And then you said we were in compliance, but you also look for recommendations. Did you give us some recommendations? Are there some changes that we could do? I mean, obviously, we're great, but we're not perfect.
Recommendations of the overall process.
The one you mentioned specifically, as I was looking through this, they didn't have any recommendations in here, but you said that you do offer recommendations for the internal controls over compliance. You said you offer those, but I didn't see any recommendations in there.
Right, we offer those if necessary. I mean, we review the internal controls, the processes, the segregation of duties related to those areas that relate to the financial reporting process. But we feel the way that the controls are designed and set up that we didn't see any weaknesses in internal control. And this, is the first year we haven't in I don't know how many years. So it's...
So you gave us an A+?
Yep. I don't see this very often with no findings or that. So they, Bill and his staff, they did a great job.
Thank you. And thank you, Bill, and your staff.
Yeah.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. Auditing is familiar to me a little bit. So and we talked a little bit before council meeting. So we have an unqualified audit, which means there's no qualifications that would hurt the city. And there were no findings, meaning that we're following policy and procedures that we've already adopted and outlined. And that's a first, I think you said, with no findings.
Yeah, that I can remember. I think I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years.
Okay. And then I think in my line of work, we also have an element of adjusting entries, errors, not errors, but we have to correct some things maybe in receivables because they're miscoded. Did we have any adjusting entries that you had to make?
Yes, there were a couple, but not that would concern us enough to issue a finding. We did make a recommendation with some fixed assets and I think accrued liabilities, but
It's minimal.
It was I mean, so it didn't warrant a finding or anything. I mean, there were very, very few adjusting journal entries.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, for the time, and Bill, thank you for your leadership on our audit and our finances.
So, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to communications. Start with our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'd like to once again thank Mayor Johnson, Jennifer Scott, and Cynthia B. for the contributions they made to this city 15 years ago when they helped build one of the neatest parks that this valley has seen in a long time. They were very helpful as we transitioned to what will be a Wild West Park version 2.0. They were understanding. It was tough experience to go through sharing with them what we felt like we needed to do, but those three ladies were champs. So I think they need some further recognition. So I thought today I'd mention once again how much I appreciated everything they did for both the children and the city in building that park those many years ago. Additionally, today I'd like to introduce at least two new individuals here with the staff. We're fortunate to have new interim Fire Chief Chris Trevino joining us. He has come with a lot of enthusiasm and support of his fellow firefighters, so we look forward to working with Chief Trevino until we get a new fire chief hired. I appreciate his dedication and commitment to this new role. We've also fortunate to have acquired a new assistant city manager, Corbin Lee. Corbin has just joined us this week and is diving in, trying to figure out how to help with the new arts facility, roundabouts, employment issues with HR. It's been a pleasure to have him join us as well. So with that said, the only other comment that I think I can attribute to the staff would be Dave Naylor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just want to give an update on our past event that we had this weekend. It was our Veterans Day of Service event. We had about 45 people come out to that event, and in all, the event, we put together 600 paracord bracelets, over 200 holiday cards, and 400 thank you cards. And all these cards and bracelets will be sent to Operation Gratitude, which is an organization that goes and they collect things, and their goal is to send packages to every individual in the armed forces. And that's a major task for them. Currently, they put out about 1.2 million packages to servicemen and women of our country. And so we were just trying to support that good cause, and it was a great event. And this shout out to Lindsay, our events coordinator manager. She's pulling a lot of hats right now, but just a shout out to her and all her hard work to get this organized. It was a great event, and just wanted to kind of share some light on that for you guys.
Thank you. We'll now move to comments from our city council members. We'll start with Councilmember Anderson.
I have nothing to report since our last meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Whitelock.
I just want to publicly thank all of those that came for interviews for the Planning Commission tonight. I think I was a little surprised at the number that chose to apply for 2 positions. I think that's wonderful that they want to help our community.
Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo the same sentiments as Councilmember Whitlock. We had a lot of great people. Did I say Whitlock? Whitlock. We had a lot of great people that applied for the Planning Commission and had great interviews. 9 different people. They were all great, and I'm so happy to see people that want to serve in West Jordan and be a part of our community and do more than just live here. So that was great too. Also wanted to welcome Corbin and welcome Chris. Sorry, Chris, this won't be as fun as Fire Ops 101, but we'll try and make it as fun. Thank you.
Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier this afternoon, I held a town hall meeting, and I had Scott there with me and also Ray, so thank you for being there. We'd have, I'm guessing, 30 to 40 people there. It was a very good turnout. It was with the senior community over about 2200 West and 9400 South. And we had some great discussions on the way the city does some things and the way they like to see the city do some things. It was a great meeting. So all those who were there, thank you. And I want to recognize all the Boy Scouts that are here with us. So thank you, Scouts, for being here and coming and seeing how you can make West Jordan a better place for all of us. That's all, Mayor. Thanks.
And Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, my apologies. I lost my voice yesterday. I feel fantastic. I just can't talk. So it'll probably be a short meeting. I do want to express real quick to Chief Trevino my support and excitement for the role he's going to be filling. And thank him for his service there. And then also to echo what was mentioned about the members of the public who applied for the Planning Commission. I had made some comments from each one of them, some of the highlights that stuck out that I wanted to relay to help the public understand the caliber of people that are applying for this. There are some phenomenal candidates, but given my voice, it's probably not going to help. So just thank you to those who applied. Thank you, Mayor.
Let me just reiterate one of the things that Councilmember McConaughey said, and that was I didn't sit in on the interviews for the Planning Commission applicants, but I read through every resume and was very impressed by the quality of people that had submitted resumes for these 2 positions. So yes, it was very enlightening and very enheartening. Is that a word, enheartening? To be able to see, and this many, we had 9 applicants for 2 positions, and they were very good applicants. So it might be a little difficult for those that were in the interview process to sort through those. Okay, I'd like to now move to citizen comments. There will be 2 opportunities to speak. One, we have 1 public hearing. If you're here to speak on the public hearing, you can do it at that time. I don't have anyone signed up for citizen comments, so we'll just open it up for citizen comments and remind you that you have 3 minutes in which to speak about anything on the agenda or anything you want to speak to City Council about. So with that, I will now open the citizen comments. So if you're here to speak, just please come to the microphone. Please come.
My name is Rob Bennett. My phone number is 801-562-5665. Thank you for this opportunity to address you tonight. On Sunday, November 11th, I had the opportunity to be able to walk around the Veterans Memorial by myself and walked around it in a very peaceful and quiet contemplation that went in to represent the unnumbered thousands of men and women who have sacrificed and given their lives to make it possible for us to be in this room tonight with the blessings of liberty to be able to govern ourselves and our possession. I noticed as I walked around the monument, it is beginning to show some signs of time and wear, beginning to be difficult to read due to fading the words that are placed there to teach us and remind us of what has gone on before us. It's now been more than 10 years since the monument was dedicated. I would like to ask the City Council to discuss at some future date a direction for city staff to take some steps in the update and upkeep of the monument that is so extremely important and is dedicated and sacred ground for us in this city, and to provide special maintenance to keep those messages there in good condition for ourselves and for our posterity. The community could also be invited to help in this process, as it is so meaningful to the people who live here as it is for those who are represented by it. Now in closing, I'd like to briefly share a few words from a well-known address with some conditions that I found were remarkably similar to ours that keeps us focused on these memorials and what they represent to us as a people. These words have as much meaning today as they had when they were uttered by President Lincoln in 1863. Our fathers, now 242 years ago, brought forth upon this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men and all women are created equal. We are now engaged in a great civil test to determine whether that nation or any nation so conceived and dedicated can long endure. In a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled for us have hallowed it. The world will not note nor long remember what we say here, but we can never forget what they did. We highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall never perish from the earth. Our dead are not ever truly gone unless we forget them. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address council this evening? Seeing none, I will close the public comments, citizen comments, and move to the consent items. I have one pulled, item 6E. Any others that?
Yes, I'd like to pull F, please, and Frank.
Okay, and that's Dirk. Any others? Councilmember Anderson.
No, I don't have anything to pull. I was just going to move to approve the consent calendar, 6A as in alpha through 6D as in delta.
We have a motion on the table. Second. Councilmember Jacob, a second. A motion by Councilmember Anderson and a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Member Jacob?
Yes.
Mayor Riding?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Burton,
Aye.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
We'll go to consent item 6E that was pulled, and Councilmember Lamb asked that to be pulled, so we'll go to him.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to have a quick discussion before we approve this. I'm not against it, but I do think it's something that we should discuss. Consulting is always one of those things. Do we pay for it? Do we not pay for it? Do we need it? And there's always the yes, and there's always a no. And so I just want to discuss among us as a council and with the city as well, what we're getting from that. Now, from what I understand, it's $4,500 a month, which my numbers works out to be about $54,000 a year. Is that correct? So I don't get to see a lot of the behind the scenes on what Lincoln and his company does for us. I don't know, David, if that's something you could share with us real quick and let us know, is this something that we want to continue with moving into this next year? Because it is something that we have to commit 12 months to.
Thank you for the opportunity. The company is actually a single individual. It's Lincoln Shirts. Mr. Shirts has been affiliated with government organizations for several years. He's well known within the Valley. He is a former representative of UAC, the county association. He is also very intimately aware of and been part of the process that was making determination of how that quarter of money would be described in a bill. He helped the Senate with an opinion about how that would be drafted. So he has been involved very early on in the most recent changes that are coming our way by the way of this most recent enactment. He's also currently the one individual that represents for the acquisition of road money, the one municipality that has him being that represents a city is West Jordan. So we have an advantage when we go before both Salt Lake County, the UAC, and the Senate, the House. Lincoln is an individual that's been working in the state for years. I knew him when I was working in Summit County. I'm going to ask if our attorney, Mr. Wall, has anything he'd like to add as well, because he worked with him in the capacity of municipalities. I'm new to knowing Lincoln and that involvement for just this past year. So I'd ask Mr. Wall if he has anything else he'd like to add.
Yeah, I would just add, I have worked with Mr. Shirts in various capacities for almost 20 years. One of the roles that somebody like him plays is his knowledge of the organization of state government and of county government and the number of people that he knows. One of the things, for example, that he'll regularly consult with us on is when we have applications or grants for funds, whatever they might be. There's always the checklist and the application process, but there is definitely a manner to present those, whether it's with UDOT or the state or Wasatch Front Regional Council, and he has a lot of knowledge in how to do that successfully. In my opinion, he's probably one of the top 2 or 3 lobbyists in the state in terms of his effectiveness. I'm happy to answer any more questions.
Thank you.
Like.
Thanks to both of you for that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, I mean, to me, I see this as an investment to our city, and I've seen things come from it, and I just want to make sure that if we're doing this investment, once again, that we're not only gaining back what we've invested, but that we're gaining more than that. So I want to kind of open that up to the council right now and have a discussion on what they feel and how he's done and if we should do this again.
Mayor, if I could just chime in, as far as that investment for what we're paying Mr. Shirts, through the help of, and I acknowledge Dave Murphy has worked really hard to help explain what it is this city needs. So with Dave's help and the entire department of capital improvements, we're looking at what we're paying for Lincoln for a potential return of about $16 million. If we're fortunate, we'll spend $54,000 and get $16 million back. That's our goal.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. And kind of a sidebar to this, I think we just need to be mindful of this next legislative session. the Utah State Legislature has elected new leadership. And for the first time in a long time, none of the leadership is from Salt Lake County. And so I think we just need to just be aware. And so I'm supportive of this. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yeah, my question is actually, when I saw this come up, I was planning on possibly pulling it as well. Procurement process, is there a need to go through an RFP for consulting services, anything like that? Is there a reason why we go straight to one person and instead of going through a normal kind of procurement process?
If I can have our city attorney explain the rationale on why we don't have to do that.
That would be great.
Yeah, and this particular contract, this is a renewal of an existing contract. And in fact, if we were proposing to engage a consultant the first time, I personally would recommend that come to the council through an RFQ or an RFP process. This is a continuation of an existing relationship.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Councilmember Lamb.
If there's no other questions or comments, I would move to approve consent item 6E.
What? 1 second, before we do this.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that. I was just going to add, one of the things that David and I have talked about, and I think is a great practice, is at the end of the session, asking our consultants to come in and to give to you an accounting of what they were able to do for the city during the session. And hear from them what they think they brought to the table. I think that's a practice that I've seen in the past that is very useful, both for the elected officials who have to allocate the money, but also to give the consultant a sense of accountability to you. They work very closely, obviously, with us, probably more time during the session with our consultants than I do with my wife at work. But it's really the 7 of you that they are working for. And so we'll be doing that at the end of the session this next year.
We would like that. Now, Councilmember Lamb.
Try that again. I move to approve consent item 6E.
Councilmember Anderson.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lamb, a second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Mayor Riding.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 in favor.
Consent item 6F has been pulled by Councilmember Burton. Turn the time over to him.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as you know, since this is yours, this is to adjust our council schedule next year. So our council meetings begin at 7 instead of 6. Then we have work sessions that'll happen at 5:30. As I look at this, it looks like this is what's going to happen each time, or is it just some specific times? It looks like it's going to be every meeting will be that schedule. Is that correct?
That was the intent.
Okay. So I don't mind having a work session for the purpose of creating the changes we need to do for our form of government. I think that's important. That's a good way to do it. I don't want that work session to be an earlier part of our city council meeting where we discuss the same things twice in the same day. We discuss it, and then after the public gets here, we discuss it again. I want the public to be able to hear the first part of the discussion and the second part. So I would like to put a clause in this somehow that unless we specifically choose otherwise, that those work sessions will be held for form of government type discussions and not for other items that will be discussed in the meeting later that day.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll do my best. I don't like the idea of changing code permanently to say in perpetuity we will have a work session every single meeting at 5:30 and then city council starting at 7. I would prefer that before we change code, we try the approach of incorporating see a benefit of having them broken out. I would just rather have it included in the meeting. If we need to modify the rules for a portion of the meeting, that's fine with me. The downside of saying city council starts at 7 o'clock, if we have a night where we don't have a need for a work session, or a work session is 5-10 minutes, we still can't start the regular meeting till the time it was publicly noticed. So if we have a large agenda for city council, we don't have a work session, we're stuck burning an hour, which puts us at potentially an hour later. So I would be in opposition to passing this as proposed. I would prefer that we try including the work session into the existing meeting. I would, however, be amenable to changing the time to 5:30 without the work session statement in there. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you. I would like to echo much of what Councilmember McConaughey whispered. I agree that, I mean, we discussed this almost a year ago about having work sessions as a regular thing, and we didn't agree to that, and I don't know if there's been additional discussion that I might have missed out on that where everybody all of a sudden thought this was now a good idea when we didn't think it was 11 months ago. Now, granted, we have had some great opportunities to have a couple of work sessions and some good discussions in those situations. And I'm not saying we should never have them or that we should outlaw them or write them out of code, but I'm not sure. I agree with much of what Councilmember McConaughey says. Codifying this is we're going to have one every meeting at 5:30, and then every city council meeting will start at 7. I would be more in favor of having work sessions if necessary, or if agendized, will start at 5:30, and the city council meeting will follow at whatever time the work session is over, instead of codifying that time. But again, not necessarily mandating a work session in every meeting or changing the start time till 7. I do like the first change, saying that we'll adopt the calendar in December instead of January, because that's what we've been doing. So that's good. I'm all in favor of the first half of this, but not the second half as it sits.
Councilmember Whitelock.
So we all know that I'm going to speak in favor of this. That's no surprise. And I have to disagree that that not making it something that everybody knows about and can plan on, I don't see how that's a bad idea. It is a different forum sitting up here and making decisions than sitting as a body and working together. It just is. Better work can get done when we're sitting around a table and discussing openly ideas, thoughts, maybe business license fees. And from the time that I've been on this council, we've had plenty of stuff that we could use more time to make better decisions for our city. Most elected bodies have some type of a work meeting. So, and I think it's better for the public to know a consistent time than, well, sometimes we'll have it, sometimes we won't. I think consistency is a good thing for the public to be able to follow along. That being said, I'm not opposed to having it, and then if we absolutely don't need it, then making that well known to the public. And when you say you don't want to discuss it twice, I get that in one regard. But we're not discussing it before the public can come and then discussing it when they can. They are welcome, and I encourage people to go to work meetings because the organizations that have those, that's where the body of discussion takes place, and you can glean a lot more from those meetings than just having a very formal setting where it's you vote. So I don't see how we are going to accomplish what we need to accomplish if we don't agree on this. And the issue that we've had in the past when these aren't codified is that, well, I can't be there, I don't want to do that, I don't see the need for it for that. And then the work doesn't get done. And I don't think that's fair to the citizens. I think our city deserves more of our time. Thank you.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate all the comments that are being said. It is a big deal to codify it. And I look at what we've got before us coming up. So I'm trying to see if maybe there's a middle ground somewhere, I hope. Both, and maybe our attorney can help me, both meetings are public, but both meetings need to be separate. It's not what we can't start a city council meeting and have a bunch of dialogue like a work meeting and then continue on the city council. The work meeting is separate but public, and city council meeting is separate but public. Is that a correct assessment?
You could extend the council meeting and add an agenda item where you're just going to study items, have an open discussion, and include that as part of the council meeting. The Open Meetings Act provides for regular council meetings, which these are, and those are the ones that have to be noticed on an annual calendar. It provides for what are called workshops or executive sessions, and those are what we're talking about here as work meetings or study meetings, where the council talks, debates, whatever, no votes taken. And then, of course, it provides for emergency meetings, special meetings, and electronic meetings. Those are the 6 or 5 designations under the state code. I can tell you that most cities separate their workshop or executive session from their council meeting, just so the public knows that the work meeting is one where the council is going to be more informal and, for example, having the open mic like you did last week, as opposed to an agendized follow-up, a very specific protocol. But if you wanted to simply start council meeting at 5:30 and have a large segment of it be discussion, work items, you could do that, and it's not contrary to the Open Meetings Act. It's probably not common, but it's allowable.
Okay, so here's what I'm battling. We've got 4 titles in the new form of government code that will be coming before us to hash out beginning in January, I presume. So that's a lot of dialogue, a lot of studying, and I do think we have to have dialogue, and we've got a lot more chapter titles behind those. And we're going to have people filing in June for offices that will be open. So we really have to have it set April or May. And I'm just wondering if there might be a benefit where we kind of, I don't want to say ease into it, but we kind of do as the mayor has done with the public hearings and moving those every other week for a period of time to see how it works. If there might be a benefit to come up with a hybrid where we move council meeting to 5:30 and we include an item where we can have this study session. I just worry that we've got a lot of items on our plate that we have to deal with very, very quickly. So I'm just throwing that out there, and that way we don't necessarily codify a 5:30 and a 7 o'clock start time, but wondering if we, do it at 5:30 and buy us a half hour, or keep it at 6, but just include a work session, after public comment or something. I'm kind of just brainstorming some ideas here to see if there's, we as a council do have a lot of work ahead of us. And I just think there's a benefit. So anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Lamb. Oh, Councilmember Burton. How'd you get ahead of him?
I pushed the button. Go ahead. Am I on? Okay. My thoughts real quickly. I don't want to codify work sessions. I like having the work sessions on off days that are not city council, and we know that next year is going to be big. And I think if we plan ahead, those of us who have struggles coming here on certain days, if we plan ahead and know those days in advance, I think we can plan ahead and be in those work sessions. I echo what Councilmember Burton said. I worry that if we have a work session before, then we have council meeting after, and then discuss it again. We're just discussing it twice. We're having a much longer meeting, and we do have good dialogue here on the council, in the council chambers during our meetings. So my preference would be not to codify. If I could, I would codify never discussing work sessions again, but I can't do that. But I would I would like to have the work sessions without having to codify them, and that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Councilmember Burton.
So I'm gonna throw this idea out and see what you think. Do the work sessions on Tuesday, hold council meeting like normal on Wednesdays, and that way we'll have a separation on there, and we won't run out of time on our work sessions. And then when we get done our work sessions in 6 months, then we can quit holding them there, or however that works. But instead of doing it before, because if you wanna sit down at other tables and we pull the table away and come back up here, and then that seems kind of awkward to me. So I'd prefer, like Councilmember Lamb said, do it on a different day. And maybe the day before, or the day after, or, yeah, whatever seems to work for that week.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I like what Councilmember Anderson said, but I would point out that none of that compromise would need to be codified. And as far as what Councilmember Burton and Councilmember Lamb were discussing, I would suggest that we could look at specific dates when we're looking at the calendar, and we know specifically when each item is supposed to come, rather than throwing out a date. Let's say we're going to have a workshop on Tuesdays, and then see what information we'll discuss, what we can cram onto those Tuesdays. I'd rather look at the calendar and see we're looking at Title IV the second week of February, so let's do one that week and look at the calendar. But again, that doesn't need to be codified. So with regard to what's been presented to us for codification, I still remain in opposition, though the compromises we've heard, I think are workable, but they don't require a change to code. Thank you.
Councilmember Whitelock.
I would request it not be a Tuesday. I think they should remain on Wednesdays, not different days of the week.
I'm going to make a motion that we table this to at least until the next meeting on the 5th for further discussion. Councilmember Whitelock?
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Riding, Councilmember Whitelock, a second by Councilmember Whitelock. And discussion to the motion, Councilmember Jacob.
I would just like to comment that this would be a great topic for a work session to talk about, have a good discussion and hash out some ideas as to what this should look like. Just throwing that out there. Beat Councilmember Whitelock to the punch.
Councilman, you would have to schedule that tabling of the item.
Okay, let's vote.
Councilmember McConaughey?
No.
Councilmember Burton?
No?
Councilmember Whitelock?
Yes.
Mayor Riding?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-6. Or 5-2, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I've done it many times. It's okay.
We'll now move to our public hearings. Receive public comments only regarding a request for a waiver of fees from National MS Society regarding use of the Veterans Memorial Park Saturday, April 27th, 2019, in an amount not to exceed $2,130. Dave Naylor.
Thank you, Mayor. We've received an applicant from the National MS Society for a waiver of fees in the amount that was stated at $2,130 for their event, April 27th, 2019, held at Veterans Memorial Park. This item will be brought back to you as a business item on December 12th. It's just a public hearing tonight to follow the process. Tonight we have Sherry Bambro here as a representative of the National MS Society, and she's here to answer any questions you might have about this waiver of fees as far as their event, their organization, to try to get you guys some information on making a good decision on December 12th.
Councilmember McConaughey has a question, I think.
Two of them.
Two questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
I don't have sign language. I don't understand.
First question, have we done this for this group previously?
Yes, we have. It went through council last year, February 7th, through council meeting. Their event was held April 28th, 2018.
Was that waiver of fees or service in lieu of fees?
That was a waiver of fees.
Okay. Did they discuss service in lieu of fees this time, or just the request for the straight waiver?
Straight waiver of fees.
Okay, thank you.
I see no more questions from the council, so I will now open up the public hearing on this issue. Anyone wishing to come and speak to council regarding this, please come to the microphone, and a reminder, you'll have 3 minutes to address council. Please state your name and contact info.
All right, my name is Sherry Bambro. As you said, I'm with the National MS Society. My phone number is 801-941-9112. And did anyone have any questions? We've held the walk at Veterans Memorial Park for the last 3 years. This will be our 4th year at Veterans Memorial Park. We moved to Veterans Memorial because of the ease of access for our participants with MS who have walkers, wheelchairs, canes from downtown Salt Lake. So it's been a perfect venue for us with the sidewalks are all in good repair and the parking access. And we've been holding walks since 1954 in Utah. I don't know if you know, has double the national average of MS. Nationwide, it's 1 in 750 people. In Utah, it's 1 in 300 people. So we excel in that. A lot of different factors to that that I'd be happy to discuss if you have any questions.
Councilmember Jacob.
Just a quick question about the event, not
Okay.
so much about the disease. The event, how many participants do you have that participate here typically?
It varies year to year, anywhere from 2,500 to our largest was 3,200.
Okay,
We anticipate about 2,500 in 2019.
Okay, and there's a registration fee, I imagine, which is how you fundraise, or is it just donations?
Donations.
It's just donations, so there's no cost to participate as
No,
far as
sir.
that goes, like a 5K with a T-shirt or anything like that?
No, if they fundraise, they get prizes, but anybody can participate.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You bet.
Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my only question would be, with the number of people that are there, really, as far as the cost that we're waiving, I would guess that the biggest cost would be just cleanup afterwards. Have you noticed in those years, is there a lot of garbage left behind, or does your staff and people make sure that it's clean when they leave the park?
We bring about 125 volunteers, and part of that is to clean up afterwards. To my knowledge, I'm usually one of the last ones to leave, and we don't leave, we have everything in the bins that are provided and haul out what we can.
Okay.
Dave Naylor. Yep. He's got a comment, I guess.
I forgot to turn off my mic, sorry, apologize.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. I see no more questions for you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address council regarding this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearings and move to item 9, remarks. Anyone on council? You are not very remarkable tonight. With that, we'll move to item 10, closed session for the discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, or strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, or strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of a water right or water shares. We have a Councilmember Anderson, there you go.
Mayor, if that was a motion.
It is a motion.
I'll be happy to second it.
We have a motion by Mayor Riding and a second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion to the motion, Councilmember Lamb.
Do we need to add adjourn from there?
Yes, and adjourn from there. Thank you. Seeing no more discussion, then let's vote.
Mayor Riding,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Burton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Passes 7 in favor.